Good morning, and welcome to this session. We are going to talk about how you can modernize and govern your digital supply chain using AWS Marketplace as well as other AWS capabilities. My name is Arun Saxena, and I'm a principal in the customer engagement team with AWS Marketplace. I'm based in San Francisco, and I'll be joined today by my colleague, Chris Pandico. He's a product management leader, also with AWS Marketplace, as well as Parneet Malhotra, who leads the IT category management team for Vanguard. The agenda that we have today is we will begin with providing you with a quick overview of what AWS Marketplace is. Then we'll talk about challenges that companies face in the digital supply chain. And what I mean by the digital supply chain is the process of procurement, provisioning, deployment, and governance of third-party software and data products. And we'll also discuss challenges and how AWS Marketplace is helping address some of those challenges. We'll then switch to talking about economic value that companies can capture using AWS Marketplace at scale. And what I will present is a number of studies done for us by Forrester Consulting, where they've really captured some metrics that will be of interest to you. We'll then take a deeper look at some of the management and governance capabilities that you have at your disposal to modernize and create a well-governed digital supply chain. Then Parneet will come on stage to walk you through a Vanguard case study where he's going to describe how they're implementing management and governance in their organization to drive some of these benefits. And then we'll close this presentation by providing some pointers on what you can do to get started in the overall governance journey. So AWS Marketplace, for those of you who may not know this, it's one of the 200+ services on AWS. It's a digital catalog that allows users to find, select, procure, provision, and deploy third-party solutions that include software as well as data products and professional services. So today, we have more than 12,000 products listed on the Marketplace catalog. AWS Marketplace is deployed in 25 regions, and we have more than 2,000 different software vendors who are listing their products on the catalog, more than 250 data providers, as well as more than 1,000 different consulting partners or channel partners who are also part of the AWS Marketplace ecosystem. And all of these products are organized into categories and subcategories. So today, we have more than 65 categories. I think we are up to 70 categories. And these include infrastructure software, DevOps, AI, ML, business applications, IoT, industry solutions, and so on. We have more than 2 million active subscribers, active subscriptions, as well as 350,000, more than 325,000 active subscribers. So AWS Marketplace is a service that essentially enables efficient transactions between buyers and sellers. Plus, it provides a whole lot of capabilities where you can implement some level of management and governance to create what we call a well-architected digital supply chain. Now, there are three main ways by which you can interact with AWS Marketplace. So if you look at the middle of this chart, the simplest and the easiest way is to do self-service. So as I explained earlier, AWS Marketplace is a digital catalog, and a user can simply sign into Marketplace using your AWS account ID as well as your IAM credentials, or you may have single sign-on enabled. You sign in, you authenticate, and then you can navigate to the product detail pages. You can review the list price and the public EULA, and if it all looks good, you can click to subscribe, and you're good to go. You can start using the software then. In most cases, enterprises and companies negotiate what are known as private offers. So when you negotiate your custom terms and your custom pricing working directly with the software vendor, that vendor creates what's known as a seller private offer and extends it to you through AWS Marketplace. Then you can go and sign in and review that private offer, and if it all looks good, you click to subscribe, and that creates the subscription to the software product or the data product, whatever you're interested in. We also have consulting partner private offers. So in this case, you're probably working with a trusted channel partner or a consulting partner, and they become the seller of record, and they actually create the private offer and extend it to you, and you can go and review that and accept it. So that mechanism is called the consulting partner private offer. So the self-service mechanism is really the simplest mechanism, and that's what creates an Amazon-like buying experience in case developers or engineers really want access to their preferred product quickly and easily so that they can get their work done. Now, Marketplace, AWS Marketplace also includes AWS Data Exchange. So in my previous slide, I mentioned the 250 plus data providers, and we have more than 3,000 various third-party curated data sets, right? So these data sets span topics like ESG, environmental, social, and governance data, or healthcare and life sciences data, and so on. So these external data sets are proving to be very useful for companies to ingest and enhance their internal data sets to improve the performance of analytics and machine learning. So to give you some history about AWS Marketplace, we were launched in 2012. So Marketplace has been available as a service for more than 10 years. Now, when we initially launched this service, it was to meet the needs of software developers and engineers who were looking for a quick and easy way to subscribe to and deploy third-party software securely in their own AWS accounts or environment, right? So the problem we were trying to solve over there is that how do we make all of these third-party software solutions readily available and make them easy to deploy for our developers and our engineering customers. But since then, over the last 10 years, this service has evolved fairly rapidly. And today, we offer many different product types. So you have software that comes in the form of Amazon machine images. You have other software that comes along with a CloudFormation template, which makes it easy for you to automate deployment based on vendor-recommended configurations. We have SaaS contracts, SaaS products, containers, and of course, data products. And there are many different ways to ingest and subscribe to these third-party data products. You can either ingest them into your data lake environment, or you can access them via tables or via APIs. And Marketplace has introduced a number of features now over the last 10 years that are targeted towards addressing some of the friction points or the challenges in the end-to-end digital supply chain. So what you see here is a simplified version of the digital supply chain. It begins with first finding and requesting the right product from the right vendor. Then once you've identified the product and vendor, you evaluate the vendor, and if that evaluation is successful and that purchase has been approved, you create a purchase order, and then the subscription is ready. You distribute your entitlements, and you pay the vendor invoice, and then you manage and monitor usage of that product over its life cycle. And then when the contract comes up for renewal, you make a decision as to whether you want to renew or not. So the traditional digital supply chain has a number of challenges, right? Beginning with search and select. Today, you folks have access to literally thousands of companies that provide software products, data products, and so on. It's a very fragmented and complex market. So how do you make decisions on which vendor should I work with? What product do I need? Search and select itself can delay the entire process, and sometimes your companies can be risk-averse in terms of working with new vendors, and so on and so forth. Then when it comes to evaluation of the request, you go through a fairly rigorous process around security risk assessment, contracting, and of course, vendor onboarding and so on. And in our experience, the whole risk assessment and contracting process can take anywhere from 3 months to more than 6 months. So that adds more friction and more delay in the process. Then when it comes to purchasing, you look to match invoices to purchase orders. So you're looking to match the vendor invoice to the purchase order and do some level of cost allocation, chargeback, et cetera, on that basis. And that sometimes can be a challenge. And then, of course, distribution of entitlements, how you're distributing these software licenses, what's your idle asset inventory, what licenses are in use, and so on. That's yet another challenge. So this end-to-end supply chain has a number of challenges. And Marketplace has been introducing a number of features, such as standardized license terms, vendor insights, which you'll hear about. We are launching vendor insights at re:Invent this year, cost management capabilities, and so on, private offers that are really helping address some of the challenges in this end-to-end supply chain. But the key over here is for companies to build a set of capabilities in the digital supply chain that help you balance speed and agility with governance and controls. So as an engineer or a product developer, I value speed and agility because that's the value proposition of the cloud. I want to develop my services and my products or enhance my customer experience, and time to market is critical. So I don't want to be held up because I cannot get access to the right software product or the right data product, right? So speed and agility is important. On the other hand, if you simply open up procurement of any product from any vendor, if it's a carte blanche kind of an environment, then you may be exposing your organization to unnecessary costs and risk. So what procurement and finance departments want to do is, while they want to enable the business with speed and agility, they also want to put in place the right level of governance and controls. And it's that balance and you building capabilities that are suitable for your enterprise or your company, that you build those capabilities on the basis of the features that Marketplace and other native AWS services provide. That's what helps you achieve that balance. You don't want to over-rotate on governance and control because that can stifle innovation. And of course, you don't want to over-rotate on speed and agility because that can raise costs and risks. So let me just switch and talk to you about some of the economic value that companies are realizing through AWS Marketplace. Now, we did a number of studies with the help of Forrester Consulting earlier this year. And in this study, which you see on the screen, Forrester went and surveyed more than 750 executives across North America and Europe. These executives are involved in the procurement of software and data products. And they asked these executives that, look, are you investing time and effort in building capabilities to improve procurement speed and agility? And 85% and more said yes. We want to enable the business, and we definitely want to enable speed and agility. 78% also said that, look, online marketplaces help reduce my organization's risk profile. So it gets back to the balance I was talking about, that how do you balance speed and agility, which is so important, but at the same time, you want to manage that risk and cost that comes along with carte blanche access, right? So the customers that were actually using online marketplaces were asked, what are the benefits that you see from using online marketplaces to procure software and data? And if you look at the right-hand side, 48% of the survey respondents said that it's much easier for us to implement the right level of governance and controls. 45% really like the increased variety and options in cloud software and data providers, more trusted data, better vendor quality, and so on. So that gets to the whole friction point that I was talking about related to search and selection. And then, of course, cost savings and a more frictionless procurement experience were some of the other benefits that were cited. Now, Forrester also went and interviewed a number of our customers who were using Marketplace at scale. and dove deeper into the benefits that they were realizing. And the benefits that they saw really came from three main areas. One is efficiency in the overall procurement process, and that comes primarily from cycle time reduction and procurement productivity savings using features such as standardized license terms or the private offer mechanism, and so on. The second area was saving on licensing fees by taking advantage of the flexible contracting and consumption models that AWS Marketplace offers. So for example, if you want to take advantage of an upfront discount, you can negotiate a 1 or a 3-year contract with a software vendor and get that discount. Or if you want to match supply and demand more closely, you may choose to go with a consumption-based pay-as-you-go licensing model. And then the third benefit, of course, was spending less effort on onboarding new vendors. Because AWS Marketplace does all of the invoicing, you don't have to onboard the vendors into your accounts payable systems and go through all of that information collection on their banking information, tax, credit history, jurisdiction, et cetera, because we've done all of that. So the key over here is that as a cloud or a procurement or a FinOps professional, right? The challenge in front of you is, as you look to your enterprise or your company, you probably have a complex multi-AWS account environment, so lots of different member accounts, many management accounts. You don't have visibility into who's procuring what sort of software or what data product from which vendor. You can have multiple business units, and there's limited compliance to an approved process. So given that this is the environment, the question is this: how do we implement the right level of governance and controls to manage software and data spend to meet our objectives around compliance, security, and cost? And that's what you can start doing using capabilities provided by AWS Marketplace as well as native AWS services. So we have a framework which we call the governance in depth framework, and it has 4 main layers of governance that you can implement, beginning with the first layer, which is your overall account structure. So using AWS organizations and service control policies, you can identify which accounts are approved to be able to subscribe to software and data from AWS Marketplace. The next layer is permissions. So again, using identity and access management and defining users and roles and user groups based on personas in your company, you can determine who will have the authority to do subscriptions from Marketplace. So you can set your permissions on the basis of IAM credentials. The third layer is that once the user has the right permissions, and if they're using the right account, are they allowed to subscribe to all of the 12,000 or 13,000 products that are listed on Marketplace? Or do we want to curate and direct them only to an approved set of products? So that is enabled by the private marketplace mechanism, where you just have an approved and vetted set of products that are available for subscription. And the final layer of governance is aligning the private offer mechanism with the approval workflow that you already have in place at your enterprise. So for example, if you go through a set of dollar threshold-based approvals for software and data subscriptions, then the entire private offer mechanism can seamlessly align with that, and that serves as your 4th layer of governance. So I gave a quick overview of some of the management and governance capabilities, and I'd like to invite Chris Pendico to the stage to go much deeper into these features.
Thanks,
Chris. Yeah.
Good morning, all. So let's dive deeper into those 4 levels of governance that Arun just went through. How do we implement those? So to begin with, AWS Marketplace works in concert with other AWS services that do governance work. So it's not all just within Marketplace. You're using the other AWS services you use to govern across your organization. So starting with level 1, you're determining what your organization and what your account hierarchy and structure looks like. You're using AWS organizations, and You can even use AWS Control Tower to help set up that organization. And you can determine who has access to accounts. Once you do that, you can then use features like identity access management policies and service control policies, or SCPs, as you'll see them abbreviated later. Those help you then control what actions users can take within those accounts. As an example, who can subscribe to an AWS Marketplace product. Level 3 and level 4, Arun mentioned some features that actually are governed within AWS Marketplace itself. So level 3 governance that Arun talked about is setting up a catalog of approved products. So taking the 12,000 plus products that we offer in our catalog and deciding what your organization should be using. So they can only that subset can be procured. Then at a transaction level, you can even integrate to tools like Coupa and Ariba to capture additional approvals per transaction. Then I would say that any governance feature is not just about who can access what, but also needs a robust reporting mechanism. So that's where cloud financial management tools come in. Marketplaces enabled cost tagging for Amazon machine images and vendor meter tagging for SaaS metered products. And that plugs into the larger cloud financial tools such as AWS Budgets, Cost and Usage Reports, and Cost Explorer. We've also integrated with AWS License Manager so that all of your license entitlements from Marketplace subscriptions will show up there, and you can see all of your organization's entitlements in one place. Now, I would say that once you've actually subscribed, there's a 5th level of governance that AWS CloudFormations and AWS Service Catalog offer in actually controlling who can deploy and what they can deploy. So let's take an example and work through it. We've talked to customers that every customer I talk to has a slightly different procurement workflow, has a different idea. So we're going to take one example. And the tool set that I just talked about can be customized to meet those needs of each individual customer. So here we're going to talk about 2 different personas, a procurement leader and a technology user, or as we like to call, a builder. Now, both of these personas have different roles and objectives, but what we're doing is, in this example, centralizing purchasing, but then expanding the ability for discoverability to the entire builder group. So a procurement leader would have the ability to subscribe to products and would be the private marketplace administrator. The technology user, or the builder, would be able to see everything that's approved in the private marketplace and actually have a request mechanism to kick off a workflow to request new products be added to the private marketplace that the procurement team would then examine, and then if they needed to go negotiate, they could do that. So those 2 personas can then be applied to your AWS organization. So by creating SCP, or service control policies, and IAM policies, you can create those specific users across your organization and enforce who can do what functionality, who fits into one persona versus the other. Control Tower, if you're starting from scratch, helps you build a custom landing zone in an automated manner that will help create a well-architected multi-account environment as well, and that helps you scale as you add new accounts. So you take your service control policies and your IAM policies, and that Venn diagram creates what is allowed, or basically what actions people can take. And then you can apply that across your organization. And if you're not familiar with AWS organizations, it allows you to create a hierarchy of your accounts. So you can organize accounts by either different business units, or maybe dev versus prod accounts, et cetera. And then you can apply those SCPs and IAM policies across your organization to make sure you have a consistent governance model. So we've talked a lot about who can subscribe, but what about controlling what they can subscribe to? And you've heard Arun and I both mention private marketplace. So let's dive into that for a sec. Private marketplace allows you to take and create your own personal catalog based off the marketplace public catalog. So you're taking 12,000 plus products and you can approve 200, or 2,000 of those. What we've seen from customers is this is the approved set that have been vetted for use by their organization. You can also actually customize multiple catalogs within your organization. So if you want to focus on a specific business unit that has specific needs, you can have one private marketplace catalog for that group and another for a different group that has different needs. It also comes with the workflow that I mentioned of being able to request new products be added to that specific governing private marketplace, and an admin can review and approve those. And it has a branding element. So users know that this is actually a curated catalog that your organization has taken the time to develop versus the general public marketplace. When a new request comes in, a lot of the times these need to be vetted by vendors. And so the vendors, need to be vetted. So earlier this year, Marketplace announced in preview AWS Marketplace Vendor Insights. Now, this is a tool to help streamline that security and risk review, creating a single dashboard with automatically updating information. So whenever you need to revisit that risk analysis, that data is available to you, and it goes across multiple vendors. So once something is approved and you're actually ready to move on to the transaction phase, we have helped with that negotiation phase as well. So we've worked with partners and customers to form standardized licensing terms. We got input from both the buyer and seller community and have created this EULA, or end user license agreement. And we've had thousands of listings that actually use that today. So you can use that if your legal team agrees to it out of the box, or you can negotiate addendums to that with the seller. So that way you're starting at a much more middle place, and anecdotes from customers have told us that that actually reduces the back and forth and redlining and gets to procuring faster. When you're actually getting ready to subscribe, you may have a specific budgeting or chargeback mechanism that uses purchase orders. So when you're subscribing to specifically large SaaS contracts or professional services private offers, you can actually provide the purchase order number at the time of subscription, and then the corresponding invoice for that purchase will reflect the purchase order number, simplifying your back-end accounts payable process and your chargeback process. Now, once you've actually subscribed, that license entitlement to what you subscribe to is automatically loaded into License Manager. And we've co-developed a feature called Managed Entitlements that allows you to then, one, see all of those licenses in one place, but also then distribute the right to use that license entitlement across your organization. So what that means is for an Amazon machine image or for container product, if that central procurement professional is subscribing to that, an admin can then distribute that license entitlement to your entire organization, to a specific organizational unit, or to individual targeted accounts, granting the builders of those accounts the ability to then launch or deploy those software products. So you can centralize buying, but then distribute deployment. So all of this then feeds back into our financial management. And I mentioned reporting being a crucial part of the governance story. So the purchase order management going into the invoices, cost and vendor meter tagging information then flows into your Cost Explorer, AWS budgets, and cost and usage reports. So then you can look at your marketplace spend by vendor, by linked account, by tag, by software product. You can slice and dice whatever needs you require, and that then gives you a sense of where you're spending, what's being used, and how your organization is utilizing Marketplace. Now, you've heard me talk about this tool set, and now I'd like to welcome Praneet to the stage to talk about how Vanguard is actually using this product tool set for Marketplace.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Praneet. I'm the head of IT sourcing and category management at Vanguard. Vanguard's mission is to take a stand for all investors, to treat them fairly and give them the best chance for investment success. As you can see, we are a global company. We are in 19 global locations, 18,800 crew worldwide, 30 million plus clients, $7.3 trillion of assets under management. Vanguard was founded in 1975. So I want to talk about Vanguard's modernization journey to the cloud. And when we say modernization journey to the cloud, there are 5 levers we're trying to modernize as a result of that, which you see here is from monolithic to microservices, from monolithic mainframe databases to modular cloud databases, from physical infrastructure in data center to virtual infrastructure in the cloud, from project teams to product teams, and finally the sequential waterfall to an agile methodology. What are the benefits we are seeking as a result of modernizing these levers? There are primarily 3 benefits which we're looking for. One is agility, resiliency, and impact. What I mean by agility is there are hundreds of teams today delivering new features in the apps in a short period of 4 to 6 weeks as compared to 8 to 18 months in the prior years. Our availability uptimes have gone up significantly, and we are tracking significant business outcomes as a result of the investments we're making in the modernization journey. So I just want to take a step back where we started as Vanguard in 2022 when we kicked off the modernization journey. We were 2,800 applications, approximately 30% in the cloud. We have a very bold vision of 2025 having 75% in the public cloud, 10% of portfolio in the software service, and the remaining on-prem. One key differentiator is we're just not lifting and shifting to the cloud. We are prioritizing workloads based on the business value and the outcomes. And what you see in the middle, the different approaches we have finalized is the business-led, the technology-driven, the long tail, and the enterprise way. When I say business-led, the key drivers are the business outcomes. In the case of technology-driven is the resiliency, et cetera. Now, when we speak about modernization, I had the IT category management and sourcing, so where do we fit in this process? So our goals are tightly aligned to the IT's goals and objectives, but we are striving every day to modernize the third-party software, digitize the supply chain, and making sure our product teams get the tools what they need in a short period of time. What you see up on the slide is our strategic partner value proposition. I'm not going to go through each and every box, but just from onboarding to managing and monitoring suppliers, we take a very methodical approach. And AWS is one of our strategic partners. What we do in this space is the strategic partners help us achieve results. They help us solve business problems. They focus with us on the shareholder investment success and help us drive faster and risk-informed decisions. With that in mind, considering the modernization I just talked about, it's all about speed and market and how can we drive the third-party software modernization. That's where AWS Marketplace comes in. We've evolved what we've done in this process over the last 3 years. And I'm personally and my team We are starting to extensively use the marketplace for low-risk engagements where it makes sense, and it's definitely given us this cycle time reduction, which we're looking for, approximately 20%. We are encouraged by when our users see a lot of trusted suppliers in the marketplace, which they can select and choose from. The standard contract for marketplace and the enterprise security addendum, which is there, helps us a great deal, again, back to the cycle time reduction side process. We're continuing to partnership with AWS to add more suppliers in the mix. With that, we're implementing these capabilities for speed and agility, but keep in mind, we want to balance with the right governance and controls. So we're trying to take a very crawl, walk, and run approach. And if I move to the next slide, that's the governance and controls, which you just see up on this slide, is like we've not just opened it up to everybody and anybody in the system. Right now, it's between what I call the cloud business office and the sourcing and the procurement teams who have user access and the governance controls. The private market offer also has to be approved through the proper governance process within our ERP system. So there are those controls which we have in place. I want to speak about the new capabilities, and I'm personally excited to see what AWS is doing in this space is the vendor insights model, and we got a beta preview of this program, which we're signing up as a beta customer. What it does for us is a single dashboard for all the risk controls, and think about all the SOC 2 reports in one dashboard available, and that will help us further enhance what I call the speed to market. So we're encouraged by this new capability and can't wait to start seeing more of these as AWS brings it to market. I just want to highlight the AWS Marketplace. Like I mentioned, there's a process around speed, agility, but managed with governance and controls. It's linked to our overall source to pay process. And if you see in the boxes, there are only 3 incremental boxes you see up there, which we have introduced, but still keeping all the governance and controls in place. And the private marketplace offer is, in the end, offer is accepted, but every other approval in the process still happens within our source to pay lifecycle. A few minutes on what's next on the Vanguard journey. Like anything else, we still have challenges to be addressed. Like I said, we've been on this journey for 3 years with AWS. We have a constant feedback loop mechanism with the AWS team. We want to see more and more suppliers in the AWS Marketplace, because that's where the user adoption even kicks in further. We want to continue to identify cost optimization opportunities. What I mean by that is when we execute a private marketplace offer, the good news there is we are executing against our master contract and the OEM negotiated pricing. What we also get is on top of that, an incremental cost benefit by routing the purchase through the AWS Marketplace. So that's an additional benefit. We want to streamline the supplier onboarding process. And finally, we want to seamlessly see if we can have AWS integrate with our procurement ERP systems. What's next for Vanguard in the AWS Marketplace? We want to scale the private marketplace adoption. We want to activate purchase order management for our SaaS contracts. As I talked about vendor insights, we want to explore that further. And finally, we want to continue to elevate awareness of AWS Marketplace within the organization. With that, I turn it over to Arun.
Thank you, Praneeth. Thank you, Praneeth. Very insightful discussion on what Vanguard is doing. So let me just wrap up by suggesting a few next steps or plans on what you can do to get started over here. So look, governance capabilities are incredibly important for modernizing your software and data procurement, provisioning, and governance, right? So how do you get started on this journey? Remember that AWS Marketplace is an optional channel that's available to you to procure software and data, especially if you're looking to deploy that software and or data within your AWS environment. The best way to get started is to start using the private offer mechanism and become familiar with private offers, whether it's seller private offers or consulting partner private offers. Then, just as Parneet illustrated, figure out how those private offers fit in with your regular procurement, provisioning, and deployment workflow. And you'll discover that private offers and AWS Marketplace aligns very seamlessly with your existing workflow. Then, in addition to private offers, you want to start exploring the applicability of private marketplace, because private marketplace really helps you centralize procurement and drive that visibility and extend a self-service model back to your users. And you can set up multiple private marketplaces for your organization. So with private offers and private marketplaces, you have the foundation for using AWS Marketplace at scale in place. Then you want to start exploring standardized license terms. So Chris spoke about how standardized license terms accelerate time to contract. So these are templates which you can use. Remember that the contract is directly between you and the vendor. The standardized license terms are a template that allow you to accelerate the contracting cycle time and also drive some level of standardization there. So we have something called SCMP, the standard contract for Marketplace, and it comes along with a set of addendums and amendment templates. And we also have a data subscriber agreement, for sourcing and subscribing to data sets. Then, of course, so now you've got private offers, private marketplace, standardized license terms. FinOps is incredibly important. You want to consider applying FinOps practices or establishing a FinOps function for cost management, for business value, et cetera, especially as it relates to third-party software spend. So leverage some of the basic AWS capabilities around budgets, cost explorer, cost and usage reports, cost intelligence dashboards to start getting visibility into cost optimization opportunities related to third-party software and data. So once you've done those, you want to revisit, of course, your account structure and service control policies, so using AWS organizations. And if you really have many, many different types of accounts and you want to standardize account vending, think about control tower and other advanced control services. So that's the way to get started using AWS Marketplace and implementing these capabilities using a crawl, walk, run approach. Vendor insights, just as Parneet and Chris both described, will be tremendously useful for you to accelerate your risk assessment. So again, what Vendor Insights does is it provides you with a dashboard on the basis of 140 different controls, which you can use to complement your internal risk assessment processes to help accelerate some of that. Now remember, we have a shared responsibility model, so you use our information and data in combination with your existing security and risk assessment approaches to do your proper due diligence, right? So thank you all, and we'll be around over here for a few more minutes to address any other questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you.